Here we go. Welcome back, Thomas. All
Thank you,
yours.
Pamela.
You're welcome.
Such a pleasure being here. I keep saying I have so many stories to tell, so I want to tell a few of them. And this is in the genre of what my friend Craig Nicholson called hear and heed. Hear and heed. So first listen and then heed, which means not only pay attention, but actually do. So I think the story I'd like to begin with is about 7 years ago. I was up in the Adirondacks, upstate New York, working with a friend on his land, clearing trails and irrigation ditches. Every day we were up there in his Jeep and running around. And I had a pair of glasses, reading glasses, that I kept in the Jeep because I was there so frequently. And occasionally I had to read things on my phone that I couldn't read. And so I got an email from a client that I needed to read, and I'm looking for the glasses and I can't find them. And I think, oh, maybe they fell overboard or, we made a turn or something. I thought, well, when I get to my car, I'll, I kept a pair in my car. I don't know, those of you that need glasses, you have cheaters like stored all around, right? So I went to my car at the end of the day and I went to the pocket next to my driver's seat and there were no glasses there. So I thought, okay, that's odd. I lost one up on the mountain, and now there's one missing in my car. When I get home, I'll take the pair that's in my computer bag. I get home, and guess what? There's no glasses in my computer bag. And now I'm thinking, okay, this is beyond just a coincidence. Something's happening here. What's happening? How am I going to read? And now I hear a voice. And this is one of the first times that I remember I actually could distinguish that there's a voice. There's somebody speaking. Not that I could hear it in my ear, but I could definitely hear it. And the voice says, "You don't need them." And I'm thinking, so I say back, "What do you mean I don't need them?" And it's just said, "You don't need them." I said, well, how am I going to read? So now I'm having a full on conversation with whoever this is. And I'm thinking, I don't know who this is, but I'm engaged in the conversation. Just says, just read. I said, just read. Now getting a little annoyed. Like, I know I can't read. And this voice is telling me, just read. And I said, yeah, just read. So I take a deep breath and I say, okay. And so I went to my phone and I tried to read it and I realized I could enlarge it a little bit and I could read it. But then I didn't go buy another pair of glasses and I couldn't find any of those three or anywhere else. And I started reading and I found out I could actually read without the glasses. Well, how did that happen? And then I started reflecting on this experience. We had another example of this. We were living this, I was living with these friends, this husband and wife that owned the land up there. We were sharing a house and he was an electrician. So there was a light fixture in the kitchen that we really didn't like. So he removed it and he said, I'll put a track lighting in. So he went out to the store. We're cleaning the kitchen, like doing a deep dive in the kitchen. I'm standing on a ladder cleaning the tops of the cabinets in the kitchen, and there's some debris, papers, and stuff on there. And I say, and then I find a screw, like a screw this big up there, and I'm thinking, what is a screw doing on top of the cabinet? I'll just put it in the bin where we keep all loose screws and hardware and something. And I hear a voice saying, "No, just leave it." And again, I'm thinking, leave it. Why would I leave it? There's no possible use. And it was just back again. Just leave it. So I thought, okay, I'm beginning to trust this voice, even though it doesn't make any sense to me. And so I just leave it on the top of the cabinet. A half hour later, Chris comes back from the store. He's got the track and lights and everything he's going to put up. He takes the ladder I was standing on. He was at the top of the ladder. He's putting it in. Then it's like a juggling act. He's got a drill in one hand. He's got a screw in his mouth. He's got in his other hand. He's standing up there. I'm holding the ladder, hoping he doesn't fall because and And he drills one hole and he drills another hole. And then he says to me, Tom, would you go in the basket where we keep all the loose hardware and stuff? I need a, and before he finishes his sentence, he's looking down because he's standing right where I was standing before. He looks down on the top of the cabinet and he just grabs the screw and he takes it. It's the perfect size screw to go into that hole. I'm now the one that's shaking. I'm thinking, what happened here? Because I'm very logical, rational, scientific. It's what happened here? I can't figure it out. Later on, a friend of mine told me about a TED talk that she heard, and she said there was one thing that stuck out. And he said the problem with human beings, not as they're designed, but as they operate, is that they only remember the past. And that's stuck in my mind. They only remember the past. In other words, we have the capacity. That's my interpretation was we have the capacity to not just remember the things that in a linear world occurred to us in some time previous in our life, but we have the capacity in some way to see the future, like to remember the future, as illogical as that sounds. And I thought, I wonder if that's what happened. And then I was reflecting, because these things like shook my sense of reality. Like, who is this voice? Who is talking to me? And they know things. And now I'm listening in a way maybe that I've never listened before. But I remembered then other times in my life, like when my younger son, who's now 37, was 12 years old, his mom and I were going through a divorce, and we decided that he would stay with me in our home, and then he would go, and then she would get an apartment a little bit away, and everything was worked out. Except I went to bed that night and got up in the morning with this, like 3 o'clock in the morning, with this horrible thought. I can't keep this job that I have. I had a job where I was traveling all over the United States doing management consulting. It was often I'd leave Monday morning, come back Thursday night. I couldn't, I thought I can't keep this job. And now I'm petrified thinking I'm going through a divorce. It's already a difficult emotional experience for all of us. My son's 12 years old. I'm a primary custodian of my son. I haven't done that before. What am I going to do? And I remember hearing or thinking, at that time, I thought I was thinking, it just was like, go out on your own. If you work one day a week, you'll be fine. It was this calm, knowing voice. And I just said, okay. And I worked it all out. I left the firm. I was going to, thankfully, there was no non-compete issue. So I just contacted my clients and said, look, I'm on my own. And everything has worked out. And I often call it the magic carpet ride, which I know is an expression that El Moria has used in some places, because every year, I don't know what's going to happen, but every year there's just this beautiful flow of work that comes and goes and comes and goes and has sustained me and has sustained everything I've needed and still continues to this day. So listening, I've learned listening, heeding, hearing first, and then heeding. Heeding meaning taking action, even if it's illogical, even if it doesn't make sense, just trusting the truth of what this voice is. Maybe some other time I get a chance to talk about there's different voices. I'm beginning to understand what they are. Sometimes it's Saint Germain. I know there's been times in my life where I've been guided by him. Now I know that because his voice is very distinct. It's about transformation, transmutation, alchemy. And then there's a holy Christ self within me, or the higher consciousness that has its own voice. And maybe sometime I'll tell, and I know, Pamela, I told you the story of the time I was in the woods in the back of the house in the Adirondacks, and I heard the voices of what they said, we're your brothers. So that's a whole nother story, maybe for another day. So listen, here, it's there. They're talking to us all the time. We just don't listen. I mean, I'll speak for myself. It's so many times I just pushed myself in certain directions. And afterwards I thought, what did I do that for? What was that going on? It's just listening. Oh, then there was a time I found an apartment. I got to say this story in the Adirondacks. I was moving out of the house that I was living in with Chris and Sarah. Decided it's time I was on my own. So I went up to my room and I asked myself the question, well, where should I live? Did I tell the story already?
No,
Oh,
no.
where should I live? So I live in Lake, and the answer came back immediately, Lake Placid. I thought, okay, that makes sense. That's the center of everything. And then I thought, but where in Lake Placid? And I thought the answer that was going to come back was a quiet cabin in the woods, meditative, peaceful place. The answer that came back, clear as could be, was Main Street. Now, Main Street in Lake Placid is one of the least populated places in the United States. It's like 120,000 people and 5 million acres. Main Street is like Greenwich Village in New York City in the summer, crowded with tourists, busy with stores, stuff. Main Street, no, it can't be Main. It was like, yes, Main Street. And then clear as could be, like a dictation. A dictation like, say, I want to dictate a memo, say, here it is, a two-bedroom apartment over a quiet store overlooking Mirror Lake. A two-bedroom apartment over a quiet store overlooking Mirror Lake. And I didn't even question it. I said, okay, that's it. Next morning, I had a meeting with a friend of mine who's a realtor, and I asked him, I told him, I said, this is what I want to find. And he just like shook his head. He just said, I said, what? He said, well, first of all, there's very few apartments like that. Second, it's the middle of winter. Nobody's moving. Third, if anybody leaves an apartment like that, it never goes to a realtor. They know people who would immediately want that apartment. And so they just make the arrangement and it's done. I said, well, I don't know what to tell you. That's it. That's it. I didn't know it was going to be so difficult. I said, that's it. I said, could you give me the name of a realtor I can call? Because he was retired. He said, gave me the name of a realtor. I called the next morning. I got the person on the phone and said, I'm looking to rent an apartment. And I told her exactly what it was, a two-bedroom apartment over a quiet store overlooking Mirror Lake. And then there was this silence on the phone. I thought maybe I had lost the connection, which happens a lot up there. And then it was like she was leaning into the phone and she said, her exact words were, I have a two-bedroom apartment over a quiet store overlooking Mirror Lake. And we were both like quiet. Again, it was like later on we talked about this, and neither one of us could explain how this happened. And that was perfect apartment. I met her in a half hour. Had to clean my car off. It had snowed, a foot of snow. Met there, made the arrangements, wrote the contract. The entire search was done. One call, one visit, all done, completely finished. So these are examples of listening against the what you think is the truth and just following it. This is what I'm learning. Just listen, hear and heed. It's very simple. Hear and heed. Thank you for this opportunity, Pamela. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. I'll speak on behalf of everyone. We all look forward to the next one.
Let's do it soon.
Yeah, yeah. All right. God bless you. Have a nice day.
And you, Pamela. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.